It makes me speechless. It was the most wild cowboy time I have ever had in my entire life. And I know I will never get to experience that again.
Yeah.
And it all became so because I didn't want to be in an office and I made trouble if they put me in one.
Sure.
And I was like, I need to get out of here. This place, these people, these all drive me nuts. You just want to sit here in your happy computer screens and I gotta get the heck out of here. So
Sophie,
yes.
welcome to the Warrior Rising podcast. I'm your host, Benjamin Bunn. Warrior Rising is the preeminent veteran transition organization that specializes in helping veterans start their own business, veteran entrepreneurship. Our programs are in some cases self-paced, but of course we offer coaching and mentorship. And for those that have participated in the full scope and breadth of our programs, you can have an opportunity to participate in some of our national business showers. I'm here at the Riverside Casino in the Twin City area of Iowa, here for our first business shower of 2024. I'm here with Sophie. She is the founder, I believe, founder of Pineland Pasture Farms. I spotted this veteran entrepreneur by way of the Green Beret Foundation. Dana Kyle, that works over at the Green Beret Foundation, was able to put me in touch with Sophie. They were aware that she had a growing business, a veteran-owned business out of Pineland, North Carolina.
Siler City,
which is, if those of you familiar with Pineland, it's out in that area. And of course, I was able to walk her application into Warrior Rising, and then come to find out she does a bit of work with chickens. My wife and I have helped, would you call it animal husbandry? What do you call it when you take care of chickens?
I would call it animal husbandry.
I think so. I like the term. I think it's official. But because my wife and I are chicken enthusiasts, right, and have been taking care of chickens in some cases since they were just little babies for the past 3 years or so, I was like, I have to interview this person. I want to have him on the podcast. And that is how you got here. That is how you found yourself here. Now, I ran into Sophie in the lobby, and come to find out, we are both from Tampa. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with Tampa. But Tampa is kind of this place where like good food, crime, and alligators all kind of intersect. And it's a pretty righteous time. Specifically in Tampa, we hail from an area called Brandon. And then, she was telling me, I'm from Tampa. And I was like, oh, we're about in Tampa. Because, when somebody says they're from Tampa, they don't live in the Sykes building, right?
Yeah.
So they're usually living around the Tampa area or might be in an outside suburb. Come to find out, Sophie lived in a suburb outside called Brandon, and specifically like kind of Riverview. And I was like, oh, wow, where'd you go to high school? And she was like, I went to Bloomingdale High School. And I was like, really? So did I. And I was like, well, when did you graduate? And she was like, 2003. And I was like, well, I graduated in 2000. So we went to high school together. So you were probably either a freshman or sophomore when I was a senior. And then come to find out, she was like, well, who did you hang out with? And I was kind of one of those kids that kind of rode the fine line. I was never very popular. Not necessarily a bad kid or anything like this, but I did hang out with this individual named Tony Walters, who was somewhat infamous in the graduating class of 2000. He was expelled for throwing a deer heart in a urinal early in a high school year, 1999/2000. And then him and I got involved in quite a few high school pranks. It almost resulted in me being expelled as well. But that whole crowd was like this strange kind of like punk rock scene. We all used to hang out at this place called Sound Idea that was run by this dude named Bob.
Bob Surin.
Yeah, Bob Surin.
With his beagles.
Yeah, who had beagles and sold 7-inch LPs.
It was such a kick-ass record shop.
What a cool record shop. There was like a comic book shop in the same plaza. I believe it also had a Shell's, which is a famous seafood restaurant in Tampa. Maybe is. I think they still have one in Tampa.
I think it's still there.
It might still be there. It might still be there. So, and that was on probably the corner of like Lumsden and 60, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you're right. It was right next to that awesome beverage castle where we would always like get our fake IDs and drive through the beverage castle and pick up a keg.
Yeah. Or if it was me, it was like Quarts of St. Ides. They didn't allow 40 ounces in the state of Florida at the time because they knew how people from Florida act when they have 40 ounces of malt beverage. So
we swim with alligators.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Ditty?
Oh yeah, the Ditty, of course.
The Ditty, the weird swamp that was like a strange development of some sort that they took forever, and the kids would jump the fence and cut holes in it just to go out to the river and swing off the trees and swim with the alligators.
100%. At the Ditty, I actually swung off the rope swing that they had there and landed on top of an alligator at one point.
It was right off the alligator. It was in the Alafaya River, and you could see the bridge if you swim it far enough.
Yeah.
My brother used to go jump off that bridge.
Same. Me and a good friend of mine, Mike Russo, we used to go bridge jumping.
I know Mike Russo.
You know Mike Russo?
We hung out with the same people.
We did.
I bet we hung out at Sound at the exact same time.
We were in the same place at the same time.
Yeah.
So this will probably be the last Tampa/Valrico story. But at one point in time, there was a guy named Kevin Shanahan who was in a band. I forget the name of the band at this time.
That was a great band.
It was a great band. But Kevin Shanahan came out at the onset of a show with the top of a pickaxe and threw it into the crowd, and it like lodged itself into this kid's shoulder. Like a kid was stabbed with the head of a pickaxe in the middle of a punk rock show. And I don't think anybody went to jail for that. But Kevin Shanahan later on would be incarcerated for some period of time, unsurprisingly. But after that incident, he was referred to as the Valrico Mangler in perpetuity. That's real shit.
We hung out with some very nefarious children.
Yeah.
We were also children.
Adequate amount of background here, okay, about where we're coming from. You guys know what time it is now. So you came from grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s in the Valrico area suburb outside of Tampa. Great place to grow up, great place to be a kid. And at some point in time, you decided to join the military? Is that right?
Yeah. I had enough, as being the youngest of 3 siblings, I had enough foresight to know, I don't think I'm ready for college. I'm not responsible enough for that. Okay. So I didn't want to do what my siblings did. One went to college and was like, no, this isn't working. Wasted a bunch of parents' money, and then went to the Army.
Okay.
That worked out for him. Really awesome. He met his wife there. My sister went the opposite route. She's very intelligent. She used her cards appropriately, and she was the #1 pole vaulting female. I don't know if you...
Chelsea.
Cello Canino.
Or Cello Canino.
Yeah, that's my sister.
You're Cello Canino's sister?
That's me.
Man,
yeah.
This is bananas. Yeah, man, I went to school with cello for like a hot minute.
Yeah.
As soon as you said Paul Volter, I was like, we're talking about cello.
Yeah.
For some reason I said Chelsea, but it's Cello Canino. Okay. Mm-hmm. You guys look alike too, so there it all is.
Full circle here.
Yeah. Rad. Okay, cool. So
she got herself into a really nice school.
Yep, I recall.
She's very successful.
I'm sure.
She's got a family now and 4 beautiful children, and
4 of them.
She's got 4. Yeah.
Damn, they're on zone defense.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're just bouncing off the walls. They're all 7 and under.
Okay, cool.
Cello goes in, she's all in, and it's like, all right, we're doing it.
Yeah, we're having a bunch of kids.
So yeah. I decided, I don't think I'm not ready for that, but the Army sounds fun, and I don't want to go to college yet. So I'm going to join the Army instead.
Okay.
And then 9/11 happened, and it just kind of reiterated. Is that the right word to use here?
Potentially.
Yeah.
Compounded your interest in that.
Yes, it really just made me want to do it more, because I'm like, well, I've been causing a lot of trouble out here, and I've just been lucky enough to not get in trouble for it yet.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just going to maybe join the Army, go do something responsible.
So tell me about your military experience. Was it formative? Tell me a little bit about what your job was, where you got stationed, this kind of stuff.
I joined in August 2003.
Okay.
I signed up for the 3.5, 4-year contract of active duty. I joined as a commo signal support systems specialist.
Me too. I was a 31 uniform.
No shit.
Yeah,
me too. That's awesome. You know all about AIT and Augusta.
Fort Gordon, let's go.
There it is.
The Gypsies.
The Days Inn Hotel.
Yep.
We've really just, followed each other's footsteps that's wild.
I'm telling you.
And I just randomly meet you here today. I had no idea.
And that's something.
That's so neat. It's never happened where I've met someone that's like 10 digit gridded right on top of it.
Yeah.
So that's a first.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Army was cool. Really enjoyed it. I ended up doing 6 years.
Okay.
My first deployment was in 2005 to Iraq.
Yep.
That was, in itself scary because we were in downtown Sadr City.
Yeah.
We were at, what was it? Was it Liberty at the time? Or no, not Liberty. I don't even, it's been so long, I can't remember. But
I was around in and around Sadr City in 2004. So there was Camp Hope, Camp Cuervo, and a couple other places.
It was a smaller camp. We were like sitting on top of a underground prison or something.
Okay. Sadr City was such a strange place.
It was a very weird place.
Very kinetic in 2004 as well, as I recall.
There's so many conspiracies you can have about that place.
Yeah.
The underground camp that's underneath it. It's very strange. But yeah, 2005, everybody started going on leave and they needed replacements for the PSD drivers to drive around because our job as the Pogues, that's, someone who's not a grunt and not an infantryman. We were tasked out to basically be the taxi cab with big guns to take them around to go see their photos and put it all up on the news.
Yeah.
So I ended up becoming a driver since I was already a radio operator. I was 2 in 1.
So if the radio breaks, the driver's right there to fix it.
Right.
Yeah.
That was a really cool job.
Yeah.
It was it was frightening at first. Going out of the gate, you're like, oh, then the safety net. Oh,
yeah.
Now I'm like, oh, there's a target. Oh my gosh, it's me. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Learning how to drive out there was very different, obviously. Out of boredom and being a Pogue, I didn't want to always sit around and clean weapons.
Sure.
So I would volunteer for everything,
Cool.
which meant a lot of driving courses. So my driver's license was really long in the Army. If it had wheels and even tracks, I could drive it.
Cool.
And so I became a driver and it became a permanent thing. And that was so much fun, but also so scary. Being able to witness like the whole Saddam thing going on because the media was there.
Yeah.
So that means I was there. It was wild.
Yeah.
I have never seen or experienced anything like the feeling of that crowd. It was the most terrifyingly electric. Just words can't describe the feeling that it was just mind blowing.
I was in a similar position when I was in the initial invasion to Iraq. They made me kind of like the RTO for like both sort of like the mortar and scout platoon.
Yeah.
And the mortars and scout platoons weren't used in any conventional way during the initial invasion. Nobody was like, running around doing scout missions, or nobody was calling for fire with like 120 millimeter mortars or something goofy like that, right? It just wasn't implemented in that way at the time. Same exact thing. I ended up, the mortars and scouts were implemented primarily to just drive people around. And as the RTO, they're like, if our radios go down, like we're driving around in the city. So like, I just ended up like weirdly being a saw gunner, just driving around the city all the time. And same thing like you described. I remember driving in the gunner's turret, and by gunner's turret at that time, I was on a 2-seater soft-skin Humvee, so essentially on the back of an F-250.
There were no walls on the sides. It was just straight up.
I was just in the air.
Raw dog in the air like that.
Yeah, right. And I remember when we would drive down the highway, it felt like I was staring into an open oven because it was so hot.
Did you have the like 4-inch thick glass like shield on your helmet that you had to wear?
I didn't have shit. Not that first deployment, at least. Later on down the road, I would get all kinds of cool accoutrements that would help me, to include blast shields and all this other kind of goofy stuff. But back then I was like wearing a sleeveless T-shirt and a set of Oakleys because I thought they were cool, and I saw an SF guy wearing them one time.
Yeah.
So I was like, hell yeah! But like, no joke, sleeveless T-shirt, my body armor on a soft skin Humvee with like a single pillar turret that my saw was clipped into. And I mean, it was, and if you were to tell somebody that, they would no joke think you're lying, And I was like, negative, my brother in Christ, that is literally the way it was. But to your point, it was like such a wild experience. It was like invigorating. And then of course, I ended up deploying many more times after that. And I was deploying in the capacity soon thereafter as somebody in the special operations, so I had, an opportunity to get great equipment, great training, all these things, but nothing compares to the feeling that I had when I was just some random kid in their early 20s on the back of a Humvee, just driving around the city and seeing the sights. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt like a kinetic tourist or something like that. It was wild.
It's a weird feeling at like
Yeah.
19 years old. You can't even drink a beer, but you're riding around fully loaded mag, just ready to go like any moment.
Very strange. Very
So
strange.
wild.
And
You grow up very quickly that way.
Yeah.
You grow up very quickly.
I think so. Well, parts of me did. I'll tell you what, when I would come back home, I was still acting very, very young. And
But it was so fun.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. So you spent 6 years in the military. You had an opportunity, of course, to deploy. Spent time, by the sounds of it, in a very kinetic area and had an opportunity to see a lot of things. And I think it's important for anybody listening to this, like, in the military, you can have a job, whatever it may be. Military analyst, fuel handler, this kind of stuff. But back in those fiery times, when the invasion was still fresh and we were still, on a multi-front global war on terror, both in Afghanistan and Iraq, and people were deploying all the time, it was not, unusual to find yourself wearing a lot of different hats, depending on who you were, what your willingness to volunteer was, or like you stacking a bunch of different schools. And it sounds like you had an entrepreneurial attitude about like finding additional work for you. You could have easily just never gone outside the wire and sat in the talk and listened to a radio and just responded when you were supposed to or call up a sit rep. But it sounds like you chose to do a little bit more by the sounds of it.
They tried to give me that job.
Yeah. And you were like, no.
Oh, it was awful.
Yeah.
Oh, I fought tooth and nail. I created drama on purpose just so they'd kick me out.
There you go.
I refuse on every angle. Like, no, I am like a caged rat here. Get me out.
That's the way to do it. So you spend your 6 years in the military. Tell me what's transition look like for you? What made you want to get out of the military, and what was your plan once you got out and hit the ground? Did you hit the ground running or?
No.
Okay, tell me about it.
Not one bit.
Yeah.
My second deployment was really wild. This is where I really learned what a Green Beret was, because I got tasked to work side by side with a team from 5th Group and from 7th Group.
Sick.
I had heard about Green Berets. I didn't
Sure.
know really what they were. I just knew they were the cool dudes who walked in with beards and weird guns. Like, okay.
All that's accurate.
Yeah. So we got myself as a radio operator and a driver, an experienced driver,
Yep.
and they needed MI. So
Yep.
there were 3 seats to fill, and me and my best friend at the time, Heather, filled those with 2, which
Okay.
meant we were how do you not sell that? So we ended up working side by side with them. Unbeknownst to us at the time, what the job we were fulfilling was essentially we were going in behind them after they cleared an area, and we would search the women, the children, the women's areas, anywhere that men were not allowed to go in Iraq.
So later on, there would be very real roles, structured roles for that type of thing.
Yeah.
But during the time frame that you're talking about,
This was 2007.
Yeah, you just had to recruit females. And this is at a time when combat arms, there was no place in combat arms for females at this time.
Yeah.
Later on down the road, obviously they've opened up, first, roles like field artillery and other things that were considered combat arms, and then for sure dedicated combat arms positions, special forces, Ranger Battalion, being in the infantry, these kind of things, all open to women at this point. But at that time, like there was no specified role. If you were volunteering for this, you were 100% blazing a trail. This was the first time that we saw females, and I'm hesitant to use the word front line, but at the tip of the spear, so to speak. And not only were you kind of blazing that trail, but you were also there with members of special operations. So that must have been a really wild time for you. That must have been really unique.
It was it makes me speechless. It was the most wild cowboy time I have ever had in my entire life. And I know I will never get to experience that again.
Yeah.
And it all became so because I didn't want to be in an office, and I made trouble if they put me in one.
Sure.
And I was like, I need to get out of here. This place, these people, these all drive me nuts. You just want to sit here in your happy computer screens, and I got to get the heck out of here. So I found a way to get out, and I ended up stumbling upon something really cool. So after that deployment, I got out. I was not prepared for any of the things that I did or saw or got to do or any of it. It was a real no leash kind of situation.
No, I
And
gotcha.
I came home and it was really hard. I bought my very first car, and my brother, he came with me to the dealership, and he this is a good example of how I transitioned home. I had him, and he's a big guy.
Yeah.
He's a pretty big guy, and him and my nephew, who was like maybe 5 at the time. I opened the back of what year was it? 2006 Kia Sportage, brand new car.
Nice.
I had him crawl in the back and my nephew, and I shut the door. And both the dealer guy and my brother are like, what is she doing? I thought I was being really funny. Apparently, it creeped this guy out. But when I opened it and I let him out, I was like, yeah, I'll take it. And the guy was like, oh, okay. And my brother was like, what are you doing? Right in front of the guy. And he goes, oh, I just wanted to see how many bodies I could fit in the back.
Yeah.
We're good. And then I walked away to the office and left them just mouth open. Like, what did she just say?
Yeah.
I came home with a strange sense of humor. Driving was odd.
You said
for
a good
me.
sense of humor?
Yeah, 100%. Great sense of humor.
There we go.
It's definitely a great one. However, a lot of civilians did not appreciate them.
Doesn't always resonate. That's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. It transition was hard because back in 2008, like you said, women weren't out there doing that,
Yeah.
and there was nobody like me. There was nobody to support me,
Yep.
and I wasn't like blazing guns, busting in doors like the SF guys. I was just there as their support to go in after they cleared things. And so even just that was just witnessing that type of operations and things like that I wasn't prepared.
Yeah.
So when I come home, and I'm coming home with this same mentality, no one untrained you to come home and be a normal human being.
Yeah.
So knowing that, I had to, at one point, there was a moment where I had to nut up or shut up, essentially. The guy put me in charge of a door, and nobody goes in or out. And some guy just pushed past me. And, thankfully, one of the other guys, he was just trying to get somewhere, but I was supposed to not let anybody in or out.
Yeah.
And it was that moment where it was like something triggered in my brain, like a snap of a light switch. And he was like, very forcefully, I mean, we're going to die if we don't, we never know. And
Sure.
very forcefully tells me, you better do your effing job or you're out.
Yeah.
This is, and he was like, made it very clear,
Yeah.
the severity. And I was like, oh, okay. So I took it to heart, and it pretty much just like having to be a woman who's not trained to be hard in that manner it still is a very hard thing to turn off.
Yeah, sure.
How many years has it been since 2007?
Since 2007,
Quite a while.
quite a few. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's still a trigger that I don't know how to turn off sometimes.
Sure.
Coming home was hard. The VA guy, when I told him when I claimed PTSD, he basically called me a liar.
Yeah.
And he said, there's no effing way, you're full of shit, because women aren't out there doing that.
Yeah.
And so I left in tears. And yeah, it's taken however many years since then to kind of get any of that resolved.
Yeah.
And it was hard to get it done. Other women had to come before me to have that proof and to have that happen for me to finally be like, hey, listen.
Yeah.
I really struggled with transition. I made a big mistake, I feel, in leaving my military community and just going straight home to my parents where there was nothing there for me.
Yeah. Right. Like just
other than my
back
old
home.
punk rock friends who, at the time were like, you're no fun anymore. But it's like, I got a lot to lose. I can't just go fuck around and find out today.
Yeah.
So it was a very lonely path. I had no friends. No one understood me.
Yeah.
So, started drinking, not doing the right things.
This is in Tampa.
Yeah. This is all in Tampa.
Okay.
Yeah. And getting in bar fights with mostly dudes because, I only hung out with dudes all the time. This just seems to be something I do better at.
Yeah.
I'm more comfortable talking to men, I guess, most times. And so Yeah, transition sucked.
Yeah.
It sucked. It was awful. Yeah.
But you're in Tampa. You're just having a heck of a time with transition. I could commiserate, right? And my little, if my little sister was here, or my mom, or really anybody close to me, they'd tell you the same thing. And I bet you, like in terms of not only have we had preceding or parallel paths, it sounds like not too indifferent. I spent a lot of time doing a lot of damage both to myself and in my personal life in and around Tampa as a result of the same thing. You see these wild things. You see and do these incredible things, and it feels like you'll never be able to reconcile it and lead this regular life again. Because
Yeah.
why would you? Why would you want to?
It's hard when the people that's supposed to like help you and protect you, they don't understand.
Yeah,
And, they didn't know how to support me at the time.
sure.
I didn't even know how to tell them about my job. I just be quiet. A lot of them still don't really know because they would never understand.
Yeah, right. And it's like, nor was it a defined role. It's not like you had joined up to go do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not like there was a recruiter sitting there like explaining to you and the rest of the classroom, hey, this is what you're getting into, right? Like I said, you're out there kind of blazing a trail. But it sounds like that you have and this is just based on us having an opportunity to talk beforehand. It sounds like you have made your way back to that military community, right? So
have.
tell me about where you're at now and what you have going on. And we could talk a lot about, pain. We could talk a lot about painful transition and have a big cry about it. But and trust me, I'll be the first one.
It's not going to get you anywhere though.
Yeah, maybe not, right? But I'd love to hear, because it sounds like you're back in you're in Siler City, Pineland, and you're doing great things. How did you find your way back to the military community? How'd you find your way back to North Carolina? And I'd love to hear about what that looked like and how that led to where you're at now and what you're doing now.
Well, back in the day when I was a young private, before my second deployment ever happened, thanks to a ex-boyfriend or an ex-boyfriend, he was the section sergeant of a group of guys, of infantry snipers.
Okay.
And we were living together at the time. And these guys were just always at my apartment.
Yeah.
They just never left. So I was like, all right, whatever. We never locked our front door because they just always wanted it open so they could just come in through lunch or whatever.
Yeah.
So we always left it open. Well, deployments changed people and things didn't work out for us. And we split our ways and it was amicable. And we're actually still friends today, which is nice. Yeah. But he left to go do different training and I stayed and, that was nice. But these guys just kept coming over.
Yeah.
They wouldn't stop. And then now I have all of them as like brothers forever, which was really cool. And I don't remember how I trailed onto this one.
Yeah.
But that's the fun thing about brain injuries,
So, but tell me specifically, how did you go from Tampa back to North Carolina? Yeah.
I followed a boy to Michigan.
Yeah.
We were deployed together. He was one of the, he was one of the cool guys that I worked with. And
Yeah.
so we lived together in Upper Peninsula, Michigan for a while, and things just didn't work out there. And I was broke. I had no money, and I couldn't go home, and I was too proud to ask for help.
Sure.
Definitely not the first time I've done that. First time I did that, I was homeless, living under a bridge in that said Kia Sportage that I bought.
Okay.
With my dog.
I'm glad you got some mileage out of that Kia Sportage, though.
I did. That thing almost hit 300,000 miles, and she was still going good.
Consumer rated very high, by the way.
Yeah. The Iraqi people banging it with like hammers and vegetable oil for like motor oil really sold me on a Kia Sportage.
There you go.
It's like, dude, look what they're doing. I bet with maintenance, that thing will last me forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so one of those friends,
Yeah.
we had always been really, really close to each other,
Sure.
and always got along. And I did not know it at the time, but he had disappeared to do some training.
Sure.
Little did I know that he went to the Special Forces training.
Yep.
And we reconnected through Facebook, and he came and rescued me
Nice.
in his white knight U-Haul.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, nothing says dedication like when a man shows
sweet
up in
friend
a
Luke.
U-Haul, you
Yeah,
know?
back then he was just my sweet friend Luke, my party boyfriend. Like, oh, we were
Yeah.
never. I always had a rule, don't shit where you sleep in your circle of friends,
There you go.
especially as a girl. That's how you create drama. But yeah, long story short, he came and rescued me, and we kind of just have been inseparable ever since. We've
Great.
always been friends, and he went to SF, and I went and did wild things, and then I got out of the Army, and he came and rescued me, brought me home to my parents, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what brought you back to Siler City, or how did you get there? And tell me about Pineland Pastures.
So,
Pineland Pastures Farm.
yeah, that's right. Pineland Pastures Farm. We, long story short, I followed this man in his SF career. 2020 got weird, and we were at Fort Lewis, Washington.
Yep.
Actually, further back in when I graduated college, actually in Charleston, South Carolina, I graduated college.
Nice.
And he was actually a Robin Sage instructor
Okay.
for, I think, down in one of the South lanes.
Yeah.
And I kind of just, after college, I moved up there with him, and they needed volunteers for Mass Day. Casualty is where they put like all the fake blood on you.
Yeah. So
It's a lot of fun.
For context for the listeners, Robin Sage is the culminating exercise that Green Berets in training go through. And essentially they're assigned a mock ODA, Operational Detachment Alpha, and are required, to essentially participate in what is probably one of the probably largest scale training exercises that takes place involving individuals from the private sector, civilians. The only other place that I think has anything similar is FBI recruits go through something similar in a small town outside Quantico, where they chase down potentially people that are doing tax fraud or something, or I don't know, or crooked politicians. I don't know what the hell the FBI does anymore. Yeah, Robin Sage. It's but there's a couple things that you must do during Robin Sage, and of course one of them is there's always a mass casualty event where multiple people, and that is the absolute worst case scenario. I acutely remember several of our mass casualty events. As a matter of fact, I almost became a real life casualty in one of our mass cal events, but that's a story for another time. It's a great training exercise. It's probably one of the most immersive and one of the most important training exercises. And it's, of course, well suited for people that are in the special forces. So it sounds like, you had come back down to North Carolina and are participating as, it sounds like you're a veteran, not necessarily a civilian, but one of the individuals that are kind of helping with that training. Yeah.
Yeah, it started with mass casualty, with all the fake blood and the moulage.
The
moulage is fun.
Yeah.
And then I like talking to people, and who are you? And hi, and I'm Sophie, and yay. And so I just kind of networked on my own and ended up landing a temporary job to take over someone who had gotten something in the woods, some skin issue.
Yeah.
And so he had to leave, and I took over his spot. And I don't know what I did right, but it scored me a job out in Pineland as a guerrilla fighter.
Yeah.
And it's such a fun job. I love it. It fits so many things and checks so many blocks for me. I really miss the Army.
Yeah.
I miss the person, like the way I was able to operate prior to my brain injuries, things like that. And so I really love it because it taps into something that I can't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
It brings back a time that like I'll never be able to get back, but in a more legal way.
Yeah.
A more safe way. And I get to like have that camaraderie feeling again.
Yeah.
When you get out of the Army, you really lose that. And when you lose it, you don't understand just how valuable it is until it's gone.
Yeah. Well, being able to have strong ties to the military community, and we've talked about this on the podcast a lot, and find whether it's, a veteran nonprofit, the VFW, the American Legion, or, you're working out at Pineland helping, young kids, young men that are trying to be Green Berets learn how to actually be a Green Beret. I think having that connection is super important. Did that lead to, so one of the things that's really interesting about the guerrillas, that are out there in Pineland, the G's as they're called, is a lot of them actually live out there in Cumberland County or in the surrounding area, Wake County, all this kind of stuff, and actually have real jobs in agriculture. They raise cattle, they raise swine, they have chickens, this kind of stuff. As a matter of fact, one of our primary G or G chief or one of them was the chicken man and had a large chicken farm and all that kind of stuff. And if we got lucky, he would bring us like, kind of a scraggly chicken that we would be able to slaughter and have. That is how we ate when we were in Robin Sage. So is that kind of what led you to establishing Pineland Pastures Farm?
No, we didn't
Oh.
even know we wanted to be farmers.
Okay.
I've just always brought home strays since I was a kid. I drove
Okay.
my mother insane. I'm always trying to find hobby pets all the time. And my husband's like, no more pets.
Yeah.
And so, we were stationed at Fort Lewis at the time. And Luke had just come home from his last deployment in February 2020. And we knew retirement was around the corner. And so we started trying to figure out what was next. And then, COVID hit and we were kind of like, what now?
Yeah.
Oh, crap. Oh, crap. What now? And so Luke's been trying to drag me out to the country for years. And for the longest time, I always thought I was a city girl. And I was like, I like, all that. Yay.
Yeah.
No, 2020 hit. And I'm like, no, dude, okay, let's go. We got to go.
Yeah.
So I convinced him, like, hey, let me get some backyard chickens. If the shit really hits the fan, we can eat these. It'll be fine. We'll get some eggs, no big deal.
Yeah.
I had no idea the obsession it would create for me.
That's how it starts.
Oh, man. Listen, listeners, if you want any advice, chicken math is real.
Yeah.
Chicken math. You say you're going to get 6 chickens, but like, you end up with 21 and you're breaking every law in the city, but you bribe all your neighbors with eggs.
Yeah.
So, and you hide some when they come to inspect.
Yeah.
You hide them. Yeah.
So this is what's funny. And
Here
we
we
had kind
are.
of talked to this at the onset is I too am a rogue chicken handler, right? So my wife and I decided to get chickens because we thought it would be formative for my son. One of my first memories is my dad was a biology teacher at Plant City High School. And each semester he would bring small chicks that he would incubate and raise. And over the period or over the span of the semester, all of his students would have an opportunity to see chickens go from small chicks to full-blown chickens that he would then probably, release to a local farm there in Plant City, big agricultural community outside of Tampa. And it was one of my first memories. And I remember right around the time my son was getting ready to turn 2, I was like, this is a way that I can give this kid memories. And of course, just like you, we started with like 5 Rhode Island Reds, and that turned into additional chickens that we adopted. We found chicken rescues locally. We had one rooster named Chef that was too big, too brave, too beautiful for this world. And
They're just so cute.
Ended up passing away, but he was also loud and he was a real bastard. And of course, now we got a new rooster named Johnny Bravo, who's completely illegal for us to have inside city limits. But to your point, I had to bribe this guy named Bentley who lives down the street with a case of beer, a 30 rack of Coors. He works he's a tradesman, so he was more than happy to have that. But yeah, it's, chicken math is real. You get 5 and it turns into 8 quickly, as I'm sure it did with you. And it sounds like that this has gone from hobby, right, or from passion to hobby, and it now sounds like you're monetizing it. So tell me a little bit how this obsession with chickens, right, raising chickens, and we all know about chicken math and how fun it is to have chickens. Tell me how this went from obsession with chickens and just adopting random animals into an entrepreneurial pursuit.
It honestly was fear driven.
Okay.
100%. I've always wanted chickens, but the forward movement to get them was very fear driven because of COVID.
Sure.
I'm a new mom and feeding my family was important and my husband was highly deployable. What am I going to do? Yeah, he just came home, but now the whole world's going to shit.
Yeah.
Is he going to be taken away again to go fight something else? There's a lot of uncertainty. I was afraid. And so we got backyard chickens. And as a soldier a former soldier, a veteran who has PTSD and a brain injury, a very severe one, I also suffer from a lot of mental health issues.
Sure.
It's a constant everyday struggle. And I didn't understand the true impact just some little chickens and their funny little sounds would make, and how the effect of them is so therapeutic. So therapeutic. I would sit out there hours on end. And when we were forced to think about retirement, what are we going to do next? I don't know. It was strange. At my kitchen table, it was literally like an invisible brick hit me in the face. I just was like, boom, I know what we need to do. I know where we have to go. I just know it. Hey, honey, let's be farmers. And at first he was like, what? No way. What? You know, he's like a 18 Zulu. He's the team sergeant. Now he's like, oh, I'm going to, go out to pastures and be a farmer. And then, I planted the seed. And here we are. We moved to our farm in Siler City from Fort Lewis, Washington in November 2021. And I aggressively, with no coop, no plan to start one and no money for one, just saw cute chicks and bought them.
Yeah.
And named them, my son named them Tomato and Potato and other strange things. And we just kind of got started. And next thing you know, we have 55 laying hens and we needed a home for all of them. And there was a brand new butcher shop that was starting up. And they had a sign that said, now hiring, email us. And I'm like, oh, that's a hiring sign, but I'm going to ask.
Yeah.
So I emailed them and I says, hey, because our whole goal wasn't even chicken eggs. It was meat birds.
Yeah.
Like pastured poultry meat, like Joel Salatin,
Yeah, of course.
And we were getting ourselves ready to start doing that and building a few tractors here and there. And then they asked us, hey, do you do eggs also? And I had like 30 dozen sitting on my kitchen table, like that have no homes. And I'm going to have to start feeding them to everyone else.
Yeah, yeah.
And I said, we do actually. We have lots of eggs. So we just kind of fell into it a little bit.
Sure.
And we just kind of ditched the pastured poultry and just stuck to eggs.
Nice.
It's really neat because in my backyard of a 1/4 acre in the middle of the city with too many birds, this one weird little chicken with a funny little mohawk. The breed is a cream leg bar.
Yeah.
This whole thing started, this whole obsession with one like little blue egg.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I still have that little blue egg actually.
Do you really?
I do.
Nice.
I'm such a geek.
Well, tell me a little bit about what your experience has been like with Warrior Rising. I know you were introduced to us by way of the Green Beret Foundation. It's another excellent veteran transition organization that helps specifically individuals from the special operations community, but also their spouses and in some cases family members. But how's your experience with Warrior Rising been so far? Tell me a little bit about what you hope to accomplish here at the Iowa Business Shower and what the way forward looks like for you.
I actually found it on accident.
Yeah.
So as a Green Beret spouse, there is a thing called the Shield Maidens, and we are what they call it is the protectors of the brave.
Yeah.
So when they're home, we are protecting them. And in that network on the Facebook page, on their private one, I asked, hey, I need some help with a business plan.
Yeah.
I need help writing it. I'm not understanding the instructions. I sometimes have a hard time reading and have to have somebody help explain it to me with understanding certain things. And so they were like, yeah, you should contact Preston at Warrior Rising.
Yeah.
And we somehow got connected. And when I was telling him I was applying for a grant for like $5,000, and he told me, it was, okay, what's your business? What are you doing? I don't really know what I said to him, but I just started rattling off at the mouth about my chickens and my eggs. And he says, oh, no, you don't need to be doing that one. You need to be doing this one over here.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what I said, but he got me to apply. I must have said the right thing, and I applied. And I honestly didn't know what I was getting myself into.
Yeah.
I have never done anything like this. Warrior Rising, you better have a sponge hat on because it is mega learning, mega awesome. Having the camaraderie from these people it's just such a warm feeling.
Yeah.
I have done classes with them. I had to learn about a pitch deck. I didn't even know what that was. I was like, what the heck is that? I had to Google it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit. an MCB? What's a CNC? What? Oh, crap. I felt like Elle Woods from Legally Blonde.
Yeah.
I had to go get all the books to read everything. And
What a great movie, though.
yeah. So here I am. I've learned a lot. I've learned how to create a pitch. Little did I know I've been doing it this entire time.
Yeah.
I think it's the social aspect that's really messing with me. I don't have people, I have animals now.
Yeah.
So people drama is gone. Now I have farm drama. I've got lots of funny, weird stories about that for another time if you'd like. But this has been an awesome experience.
That's great.
I don't feel deserving, but at the same time, I feel so blessed to be here and to have this amazing opportunity. And I just want to make the best of it. Like, even if everybody wants to win, of course. I hope I win. That'd be cool. I have such a big dream. But this is just such a kick-ass experience. It's a learning experience. It's a networking. Whoa.
Yep.
Whoa. I had no idea how big of a thing that would be here. And I forgot my business cards.
Don't worry about it, right?
I've got my little digital ding. Here it is on your phone card.
Well, that's a great segue. So even though you forgot your business cards, you'll have an opportunity to get the word out via this podcast and, of course, through your experience with Warrior Rising. How do people learn more about your business? Sophie, how do people get in contact with you? What's the best way to find out more about Pineland Pastures Farm?
I love this topic. Yay.
Yeah.
Pineland Pastures Farm. We are a pasture-raised regenerative farm. We're in Siler City, North Carolina. We are a veteran-owned and operated farm. And we have a really big dream because your eggs are old at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Y'all, they're old. They're like 60 days old and probably longer. It's like over 2 months. They're not fresh. Nothing in the grocery store is fresh.
Yeah.
My husband, Luke, and I, we want to bring something a little different. We strategically bought a farm that was within an hour to an hour and a half of driving from 3 major local cities: Greensboro, North Carolina, Raleigh, Durham, and Fayetteville.
Yep.
And then 3 smaller cities: Pittsboro, Sanford, and Asheboro. That's over 1 million people population that our farm could help serve with fresh eggs instead of 2-month-old eggs. You're getting like a week old or 2 weeks, and we hand deliver it to that store ourselves. Completely cut out the middleman. I don't want to stomp out other small farms. I want to pave the way for other small farms.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants fresh. But what are you going to do when there's no farmer's market going on?
Yeah, it's true.
Then what? Know your farmer. Know your food. We believe in local. Like, Luke and I have this desire. Like, we're not in the Army anymore. We don't serve our country anymore, but we still want to serve.
Yeah.
And we want to give other people, we want to arm our neighbors. Everybody can be sustainable. Everybody can help one another. I'm going to say it. If the government's going to divide us, then farmers need to unite us. Farmers are important for our food. They're important for our country and our livelihood. Soil health matters. Oh my gosh, I'm so passionate about this.
Yeah.
We believe in arming other people with knowledge and the way to do it. And we just want to help. We want to empower them. We want to show them that from our example that it's possible. You don't need to be a big mega corporation to make a livelihood that's worthwhile for your family.
Yeah, 100%. Well, what's the best way to reach out to you guys? What's the best way to learn more? Do you have social media or do you have a website? Tell us about that.
We do. Pineland Pastures Farm on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
We are at Pineland Pastures Farm. We're pretty active on there as well as LinkedIn. We're a very small business still. We don't have a website, so we're just kind of grassroots, just on our own, to
Nice.
veterans with a mission.
Good. And then I asked this to all my guests, right? If you had one piece of advice, right, and you've got a tremendous idea for business, right, a sustainable idea, something that's fantastic, something that people have been doing for ages, but potentially could use some revitalization, right? You know what I mean? Because I think we're used to being supported by huge blockchain logistics, and nothing is truly farm to table anymore. But it can be, right, with people like you, with organizations like yours, with businesses like yours. But if you could give a piece of advice to people that are starting their own business in the same kind of category as yours, or even moreover, if you were to go back in time a couple years, like 2020, right, when you first started thinking about this stuff, what's a piece of advice you'd give to somebody who's on the same path as you, or if you could go back in time, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
The one thing that I've run into the most when I tell people about my dream is they laugh at me. And they say, good luck. And I say, thank you. I'm going to need it. Don't listen to the people that are laughing. Use that laughter as fuel to just push you further and push your passion. I can't tell you how many people have laughed at me. And I said, okay, you watch. You'll see. Just, stay humble and don't give up.
Yeah.
Cost analysis, y'all. Cost analysis. I know. Oh, that's a big one.
You're like, also learn how to do a cost analysis and use Excel.
Yeah. You don't even need Excel. You can just, as long as you can figure out a cost analysis, you'll know the actual value of your company.
Yeah.
Don't romanticize it. You
100%.
get lost like that.
Well, hey, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time to jump on the podcast today. We got to get you downstairs so that you can do pitch prep, right?
Yeah.
We've stolen you away from one of our program directors, Teresa. So I want to thank you again. For the listeners and viewers out there, don't forget to head over to the Pineland Pastures Farms or the Pineland Pastures Farm Instagram page. Give them a like. And of course, if you want to learn more about veterans like Sophie, you can head over to warriorizing.org. Sign up for our programs and learn more about all the different ways that we're helping the veteran community and helping create the next generation of great American business owners. Sophie, thank you again. This has been a great opportunity to talk not just about our shared lineage from the Riverview, Valrico area, but also about all the great things that you have going on as a veteran entrepreneur. Thank you again for being on
Absolutely.
On the show.
Thank you for having me. And for anyone listening, you can buy my eggs at Chatham Meat Co. in Siler City and Sanford right now.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So
all right.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks again.